Blackstone Audiobooks presents Dostoevsky in 90 Minutes by Paul Strathern. Introduction. At dawn on December the 22nd, 1849, the 28-year-old Fyodor Dostoevsky and his fellow prisoners were led out into the square of the Semyonovsky barracks in St. Petersburg. Across the snow was a line of soldiers with rifles, facing 3 grey wooden posts close to the wall. The conspirators were lined up, and one by one their names were read out, followed by the words, "To be put to death by firing squad." This was the first they had heard of their sentence, which came like a bolt from the blue. The prisoners were made to kneel in the snow, and the priest read out the last rites over their heads, "For the wages of sin is death." Years later, Dostoevsky would describe his reactions in the third person as he waited for the sentence to be carried out. There was a church not far off, its gilded roof glittering in the bright sun. He remembered staring with awful intensity at that roof, and at the sunbeams flashing from it. He could not tear his eyes from those rays of light. They seemed to him to be his new nature, and he felt that in 3 minutes he would somehow merge with them. The first 3 prisoners were led forward and bound to the posts with ropes, their arms tied firmly behind their backs, linen hoods pulled over their heads. Dostoevsky was one of the next 3 in line. The officer shouted his order, and the soldiers of the firing squad raised their rifles. The sound of galloping hooves approached. The rider and his horse clattered to a halt beside the officer and handed him a sealed packet. The officer tore open the seal and read out the message. "By the infinite clemency of His Majesty Tsar Nicholas I." The prisoners' sentences of death were commuted. Dostoevsky would later write, "I cannot recall any day as happy as that one." He was lucky. One of his fellow conspirators had been driven insane by the ordeal, which had in fact been no more than a cruel charade from the outset, arranged by the Tsar himself to teach Dostoevsky and his fellow prisoners a lesson they would never forget. Dostoevsky would certainly never forget the experience. He would later write, "Do you know what a death sentence means? He who has not gazed upon death cannot understand it." Anyone who has undergone such an experience is not about to take things lightly. This would certainly be true of Dostoevsky in both his life and his work. Dostoevsky's life and works. Fyodor Mikhailovich Dostoevsky was...
Sample complete. Ready to continue?